Hi Taylor, here's the feedback for the mock exam that you did just before half term. And if we look at question 1, you've written 4 answers, all 4 answers are correct, so you've scored the full 4 marks for this question. So that's a good start for you. Moving on to look at question 2, where you've been asked to describe how the writer uses the language to describe the effects of the storm. And it says you could include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language features and techniques, and sentence forms. Now you've started off okay in that you've said that he uses a list form and you've listed some of the words that he's used. And you've said that this suggests to you that the writer has done this deliberately to show how bad the storm actually is. So if we look at the mark scheme starting off at level 1, it says show simple awareness of language and offers simple comment on the effect of language. I think really we've got to say that this is simple comment on the effect of language. To gain the higher marks, you need to be explaining the effect on you as the reader. So it's not just that he's trying to show how bad the storm actually was. You need to be saying things like, by using the words, the wind lashing the trees, it seemed like the wind is hitting against them and shaking them about, or that it suggested it's whipping them as if it's trying to destroy the land. So you need to be going into much more detail about the effects on you, the reader. Moving on to your next point, where you said the writer uses complex centations. I'm not sure what that word is. I think it's meant to be sentences. So you need to try and make sure if you're using the terminology, you use it correctly. But anyway, you said he's using complex sentences to grab your attention and really making you feel as if you're in Alex's shoes, and you've given a quote there. Unfortunately, you're not answering the question, which was how does he use the language to describe the storm. This bit is not talking about the storm, it's talking about how you think Alex feels. And then again, this bit here, you said he uses a simple sentence, but it speaks a lot more volumes on what's to come for Alex. So again, it's about Alex, not how he's using the language to describe the storm. So you really do need to make sure that you're focusing on what the question's asking you. Highlight the key words if necessary and refer back to it at all times. You could have commented on the phrase furious waves. So it's suggesting that the waves are really angry, or that it's wild, angry and aggressive as it crashes against the rocks. And you could also comment on the fact that they've used the adjective roaring Pacific Ocean, where the adjective roaring tells us that the storm is very noisy. Or for a level 3, you could say that it's a deafening noise to suggest that it's attacking the land like a wild animal. So these are the kind of things that you need to be thinking and writing, and above all, make sure that what you're answering is answering the question. So I think because you've not answered the question and really your analysis of the language is simple, it's going to have to be 2 out of the possible 8 marks for this question. Moving on to question 3, where you've been asked to think about the whole of the source and to look at how the text has been structured to interest you as a reader. Now in this question, you've focused more on the sentence structure, so you've talked about simple sentences and complex sentences, and the fact that there's been a simile used and then that it goes back to simple sentences once again. Unfortunately, this is more to do with question 2 than question 3, where you're looking at the structure. You need to be commenting on the fact that it starts off just about Alex, and you could say that it's split into 2 distinct parts. There's Alex on his own, and then there's Alex with the family. And the fact that you learn right from the start who the main character is, Alex, because he's the only one mentioned, and you also know when it takes place, because it tells you it's at dawn, and where it takes place, we're told that he's in bed. You could have mentioned the fact that it's an abrupt opening because he's been startled awake by the nightmare, and the fact that the writer initially focuses very close in on the nightmare and the effects of it on Alex himself. and all this could suggest a sense of unease to the reader. The next focus is Alex's fear when he describes that he thinks it's going to be a bad day, which the quote you have used somewhere. Well, here it says he decided that this was going to be a terrible day, one of those days, and so on. And then it goes on to say there's been a lot of these days since his mum was ill, and that's the first reference that we've got, that his mum's ill, and then that does take on the poignancy of the nightmare which you have mentioned. Then the next part is when we get the dialogue between Alex and his sisters. So why is the writer chosen to use dialogue there? You need to explain that. The writer seems to zoom out again and focus on the family and what they're having for breakfast and what they've been eating over the period of time that the mum's been sick, before then going back into Alex and then ending up with a description of his mum and all the things that he misses about her and the things that she used to enjoy. So that's the kind of thing that you need to be focusing on when you're looking at the structure question. So unfortunately, although you've made some good points, the points that you've made should really have been an answer to question 2, not question 3. So for that reason, and because you've not really talked about the structure much, it's going to have to be the bottom end of level 2, which would give you 3 out of the possible 8 marks for this question. Moving on to question 4, where you're asked to respond to the statement, this part of the story set during breakfast time shows that Alex is struggling to cope with his mother's illness. To what extent do you agree? So you've said initially that you can see that he's really struggling, especially after the nightmare, and you've given a quote about the pancakes and said that shows that he's not angry at the pancakes, but it is his father, which is a reasonable point to make. You've then gone on and given your impressions of Alex, but what you've actually said, it's not your impressions of Alex, it's your feelings for Alex. And then you've said that he shouldn't have to tell his younger sister the mother's going to die, not going to die, sorry, and you feel sad. I like this bit about his life moving in slow motion and there's no normalcy even in the food that they eat. And you've given the quote again. And you said you can understand Alex's anger towards his father because basically he's not looking after them properly. So if we look at the mark scheme, starting with level 1, it says show simple limited evaluation. You have made some evaluative comments on it, but not too many. But the thing that you've missed out mainly is shows limited understanding of the writer's methods. So to be looking at level 2 shows some understanding of writer's methods. Now there's only one point where you've commented on the writer's methods, and that's where it says Alex loved her dearly, which is shown when the writer lists all the things Alex misses about her. But unfortunately you've not put the quote in there, so that point on the writer's methods has to be in level 1. You have selected some appropriate textual references to the points that you've made, and you made some response to the focus of the statement. However, I think to be reaching the higher marks, you need to definitely comment more on the methods that the writers use to show that Alex isn't coping with his mother's illness. And you could have said that he's angry with everybody, including at times his mum for getting ill. It suggests that he's desperately looking for someone to blame because he's not dealing with the situation very well at all. This is also shown through the dialogue he has with his sisters, where he snaps at them rather than trying to reassure them like an older brother. He also shows that he's not coping by comparing what his mother used to be like before she became ill, and there's the metaphor little more than a silent ghost suggests that she's become almost invisible in the life of the family. So I think for this question, it's 6 out of the possible 20 marks, which gives you an overall score of 15 out of 40 for the reading questions on your mock paper 1. There's still a lot that we can improve, there's still a lot of time to do it. I think it's unfortunate that you missed 3 weeks around the Christmas period, and I know that you've got another holiday coming up in the near future. So I really do think you need to start attending the catch-up sessions to make sure that you're answering the questions correctly, because as we've seen from this one, you do seem to be misunderstanding some of the questions or answering them in the wrong way round, if you like. So I still think you're more than capable, definitely, of getting a good grade in your GCSE, but I would feel happier if you would attend some of the catch-up sessions, just to make sure that we can go through the questions again and make sure you're secure in what you're doing with them.